Yes.
Yeah, Lauren was going to try to log in again this time, but we can go ahead and get started. I just wanted to have her on in case you guys had any questions, but nothing pressing. So we're good.
Okay, so now is Patrick there?
Walpole Media's here. I see them online, and he's connected.
We're here. We're ready for you to begin.
Patrick from Walpole Media.
Okay, so Patrick, anytime you're ready, go ahead.
You want me to count us down?
No, you can go whenever you're ready.
Okay, terrific. Okay, well, welcome everyone to tonight's regular meeting of Walpole's Select Board. And I'd like to ask everyone to stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands,
one
nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I know that's not easy, but I think it's a nice tradition for us to be upholding, particularly in these times. We are still operating in remote mode, obviously, due to the coronavirus situation. And so we'll follow the same kinds of rules that we followed last time, which is I'll try to go just through the members of the select board and ask for, discussion and input. And we'll try and just manage our way through it that way. Okay. So Jim, I think you're up first with a coronavirus update.
Sure. Just a couple of items I wanted to go over. At this time, we have 62 confirmed cases in Walpole. We just got number 62 in within the hour. Of those 62, 13 have completed the monitoring and are in recovery. That leaves 48 cases that are currently undergoing monitoring. Melissa, the board health director, and our staff are doing a great job. Towards the end of last week, we actually had to assist the services of the nurses in the school department up with the caseload and the investigation each time. So they're keeping up with the workload. It's good to have the nurses there who are still on our payroll, and good to have everybody there. Any questions on that at all?
David, any questions for Jim?
All set. Good job, Jim. Good job, everybody.
Thank you.
Mark?
Thanks.
Nancy?
I think.
And Ben?
All set. Thank you.
Great, thanks.
The only other thing I wanted to bring up under.
Go ahead,
Jim. Nancy.
Oh, Jim? Oh, all right.
Yes.
Can anyone else hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Nancy.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I just want to say that I thought Board of Health, the nurses were doing a fabulous job. But what I was wondering is if maybe we could start releasing the age grouping similar to the state, the way they report, because I know with everybody talking about, gatherings that they're seeing somewhere of maybe kids and things like that, that if we stayed consistent with the way the state reports the numbers every day, that we could see them in the, by tens, that maybe it would then make people think, oh, that is my age group. It's not just old people.
I can ask Melissa if we can do that.
Hello?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
I can ask Melissa if we can do that. Thanks,
Then,
Nancy.
All right, that's it. Thanks.
Okay. The only other couple of things I wanted to cover, and I see Lauren Goldberg, Town Council's joined us, out to me towards the beginning of this week and asked me specifically about and some of the procedures they're undertaking with as far as keeping the guidelines of the buildings clean and making sure that the workers are construction code guidelines and what are we doing as far as inspection. You'll see that I have Building Commissioner Mike Yanovich on here, and if you all don't mind, I'll give you an update as to what he's facing and some of the things he's off dealing with as far as inspections and permits coming in. So Mike, that's up to you.
All right. So I'll just go through some of the bullet points of what we've been encountering, what we've been doing to adapt. So we're operating at just about 100%. There hasn't been really much of a bump in the operations, at least in the office. There's been a small decline in the amount of permits that are being filed. But the office staff has done a fantastic job adapting. We are actually out ahead of this with our permitting system. So our permitting system is cloud-based. So we can access it from home, from laptops, from tablets. We bought tablets last year. So all the inspectors have their tablets at home and have their tablets in the field. So, we are out ahead of this a bit. The public can apply for permits online. Everything is available online. And the permits continue to come in. Just this past 2 weeks, we've had 6 brand new single families that came in amongst all the other permits that come in on a daily basis. We've modified our staff in office times where everybody has a slot, so we're not overlapping. If you need to come in the office, which is very minimal at this point because we're running everything remotely, if you do need to come in the office, we have very little overlap. Diane is still taking in permits, processing initially permits, chasing paperwork from homeowners and contractors. The inspectors are rotating on plan review and inspection days, and I'll get to inspections in a bit and how that's working out. So it's working out. Electrical and plumbing are out there every day conducting inspections, and people are still calling on a daily basis for inspections. So we've managed to keep up with it, and a lot of it is due to the cloud-based system that we're utilizing that the public has access to, the inspectors have access to in the field. We can record in real-time inspections, and we can chat with contractors and homeowners in real time on the software. So it's been a I'm not going to say a seamless transition to what we're doing now, but it was a lot easier having Viewpoint in place. So just to cover some of the field issues that we came up on, initially we actually had a job site, I'll call it a drawdown, right after Boston issued the stop on all the construction projects. We issued a stop, but more of a drawdown. We gave guidelines to bring the jobs down to no more than 10. And those jobs really were the downtown jobs, the Pulte job, where there was 30, 40, 50, 60 people on site during the day. And as a former 33 carpenter and local 22 laborer, I completely understand, people wanting to work, but we needed to take our breath and figure out what we were going to do moving forward with that concentration of labor in downtown. So subsequently, we released the drawdown, and after Governor Baker released guidelines for construction in the state, we sent out a letter saying, okay, you can go back to work, but prior to going back to work, send us a letter stating how you plan on complying with the governor's recommendations of the governor's guidelines. So most of those jobs are up and running. The only one we were hands off on was Rolls-Royce. Obviously, they're essential right off the bat with their function, and they were determined to be essential right off the bat. So they kept on plugging away. And then the inspection part. The guys are in and out of these structures, in and out of these houses on a daily basis. We limited our inspections to exterior inspections only. We will do interior inspections. The guys have been great, and Diane has been great. If we have to absolutely view the interior of a structure, we've actually been doing it via video, via photographs, if it's applicable or if it's appropriate. And if it's not, everyone's been doing quite frequently, FaceTime or video Skype inspections. So we've been doing live inspections over computer or over tablet inside houses with contractors via, electronic media, which has worked out. Some other towns have balked at it. Everyone has a different comfort level with technology, but it's worked out pretty well for us. We've been able to keep the stream of permits and inspections going pretty well. So, just one thing on the Viewpoint I'll get back to. We pushed this Viewpoint, when I was here previously, in my previous stint, we started vetting programs, and then Dave Norton implemented it, was finally able to get the money appropriated and implemented it. But this has been the system, the cloud-based system is what's been able to keep us going. Every department in town that has a stake in permitting has the ability to be on this system. We have the fire department initially on board. I'm working with health and economic development, and they're slowly coming on board. But we have the ability to utilize this system throughout town hall. Make it easier, make the permit process easier for the public, make it easier to quantify and easier to track permits, as well as revenue, obviously. So we'll be pushing this, and I think people are slowly starting to see the benefit of the electronic permitting system now that we're all working remotely. We've managed to keep a revenue stream. We've managed to keep homeowners and contractors, at work because we have this system in place and because we're working together with other departments. So I don't know if I took a breath yet, but I'll stop for any questions if you have any questions from there.
Well, Mike, it's Jim. First of all, thank you for everything you're doing there, and for being creative and innovative as you try and keep the business of the town moving in your shop. I think it's great what you're doing. And so thank you to you and to your entire team for everything they've been able to accomplish during this tough period of time.
Thank you.
And what I'm going to do now is just do the round robin thing and ask people if they have questions or comments for Mike. So Ben, why don't I start with you?
Okay. Yeah, first off, thank you, Mike. I really appreciate the update. A lot of great information there. My main concern has always been the safety of our residents, the safety of the workers, and the safety of your staff as well, obviously, as far as all these people being in the same spot. So, it's nice to hear that we have these guidelines, right? They've been in place. We're able to follow them because of the electric system you have. And as long as you feel like, your staff is able to do the work safely, and we feel like the contractors and the job sites are adhering to these guidelines, then I think it's a good situation to move forward in.
Right. Yeah. I mean, just a little as of today or yesterday. So we've also been having staff meetings via Zoom every morning at 9:00. We have a staff meeting to go over, the status and what we're doing and inspections. And yesterday we changed it up a little bit and said, if you are even going into a vacant building to do an inspection, that you'll wear at least minimum eye protection and a mask, just to protect yourself going into these structures. So everyone, I have to hand it to the team in the building department. They've done a fantastic job adjusting and keeping this rolling.
Great. Thanks. Ben, anything else? Okay, David, why don't we go to you next?
Sounds like you have a good setup. Thank you. And I'm sure that contractors and homeowners wouldn't take advantage of the limited inspections. Have you had any circumstances where you feel like you had to go visually see something or have them leave a wall open for you to inspect later? Have any of those circumstances come up?
There are very limited circumstances where that takes place. We have had a couple that anytime something comes up, that's what's great about the team that we have, is we get on a call or we get on a video chat and we talk about what we can do. We've had a couple instances where it's, technical in the way of electrical installation or whatnot that needs to be viewed. So some of those things may have to wait, but those are very few and far between. Our thing is, you have a homeowner that wants to just get their house back in order. They're living there. They're stuck there. We want to be able to get it squared away and closed out for them so they can have a whole house to live in. So those have been very few and far between. I'd have to say I can count on one hand out of the past 3-4 weeks the amount of inspections that we didn't complete because of a situation where we need to leave it until we can actually get our eyes on it in person.
That's great. Again, thank you. Good job.
Thanks, David. Nancy, we'll go to you next.
Great. I just want to say it's awesome. When we went through the hiring and interviewing process with you, one of the biggest things that was important to us was getting to be cloud-based and getting to be streamed permitting and the electronic system and stuff. So, if we didn't have you, we wouldn't have this ability. And then that goes back to the fact that, safety first, but you are helping to keep the economy going and helping families keep jobs going. And And that is a huge impact to people right now that are, out of work and limited incomes, lost incomes. And I think the fact that you have done all this, it impacts a lot of families, and it's really great. Keep it up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nancy. Mark, go to you next.
Yeah, Mike, I just say thanks to you and your team for keeping things working in a difficult situation. And, as Nancy mentioned, I think the online permitting system is helpful. And that you guys are able to use even, video chat and all that to take a look at inspection. So I think you're being very innovative, and I think that's great. Make sure you thank your team for all of us.
They're probably watching right now, so I think you just did.
Even better.
Thanks, Mark. Mike, anything else?
No, I'll just say, Brian Leary, the electrical inspector, Jack Lee, the plumbing inspector, Diane Piazza, Jim Crowley, Bob Dugan, and Jen, who was, taken away from us in the middle of the night and sent down to the health department. She's still a great help. They've done a great job, and they've made it easy. It's not easy to change up as we found trying to push the electronic permitting system. It's not easy with change, and everyone's said, hey, look, we're going to run with it and we'll fix it as we go. So it's really them that's made it work. So I just want to thank them.
Well, great job again, and thank your whole team for us, and keep up the good work.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. And Jim, with that, I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, so I know Lauren Goldberg is on the phone. She offered to call in tonight, and I just figured we'd take her up on that, and to see if there's anything, she wanted to say or comment, or if the board wanted to run anything by her. So Lauren, do you want to just, make a couple of statements?
Sure, absolutely. Good evening, everyone. Definitely getting used to the technical sides of Zoom, but tonight, for some reason, my internet was not very supportive. So in terms of next steps, you all have decisions to make about when things might occur, and how to, and what the timing should be for that. And in my view, you really do still have time to make those decisions. The way that the legislation on the town meetings work is that the moderator can make 30-day determinations of emergencies, or the Board of Selectmen can push off the meeting as long as it needs. So at this point, it seems where the moderator has made an initial determination that you would look in 30 days and see where things are. With respect to elections, because your election occurs on June 6th, you don't have the ability to push back the dates. So at this time, the election will go forward with all of the regular filing deadlines and in place. If we get a little bit later into May, and it seems like it's going to be difficult to hold an election at the beginning of the month of June, I anticipate that we'll see more from the legislature about pushing election dates or trying to do something else.
And Jim, we've actually had some dialogue with the legislative delegation on this topic, right?
Yes. So what we've really, I've been asked by a couple of residents, and I was gonna cover this under my TA update. We mentioned it. A couple of residents have already asked, can we postpone the election? Lauren covered that. Right now, the answer is no. We're not, the legislation that was passed only covers towns whose election is prior to May 30th. Ours was obviously the first Saturday in June. So right now, we don't have the ability to extend it even further. But obviously, if that's brought up again or reconsidered, June would be on the table. So that's something we're going to have to just closely monitor. And as far as town meeting, which is the next item on the agenda, Dan postponed that until June 3rd, which is the farthest out he could push it by law at this time. But we expect that we're probably going to have to meet and extend that. I've already reserved the 22nd, 24th, and the last Monday in the 20th of June, just to cover everything, because we're going to need to have as big a picture as possible as far as what's the state doing, what's our revenues look like. Obviously, they're down. We're not collecting as much as we projected in meals tax, hotels tax. I'm glad to hear that Mike's doing well on the building permit side, because we're going to need that. But there's other things that are going to be down, interest revenue as far as penalties and interest. So we need more of a time to get a big picture on things with town meeting. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah. And Jim, it's Lauren again, if I could just add to that, I think the way that the legislature has left things for a town meeting, especially based on the new provisions of Chapter 53 of the Acts of 2020, is that if for some reason you are not able to hold your entire town meeting before June 30th, because of the emergency, there are some municipal finance issues that the legislature has made easier to deal with, including, if necessary, having part of town meeting after June 30th. In addition, let's just say, and we certainly hope this is not going to be the case, but in theory, if it was still too dangerous to hold an in-person town meeting by that date, the legislature will allow towns to go to a 1/12 budget, just like they've always allowed cities to do if they can't pass a budget by June 30th for reasons outside of their control. So that was welcome relief for municipal CEOs and executives and executive officials, because it means that no matter what, you'll have a way to continue operations after June 30th, regardless of, whether we run into issues with town meeting.
Okay, thank you, Lauren. Jim, do you want to open up to the board and see if anybody has questions for Lauren?
Yeah, so first off, Lauren, thanks for being here tonight and helping us to understand both of those issues. We are getting a lot of questions from the community, and it's going to be important for us to be clear on what our options are and how we're going about it. I know Jim has already started some of that outreach with the legislative delegation, and that's appropriate given where we are, and we'll see how things pan out. But thank you for being here to help us tonight.
Of course, yes, thank you.
Yeah, so with that, Nancy, why don't I start with you this time, and do you have any questions for Lauren?
I don't, but what I did want to do is I'd like to make a motion to support the town moderator's postponement of Springtown meeting.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second? I'll second. So we have a motion and a second. I'm going to open up for discussion on the motion that Nancy just made. I will come back around for other questions to Lauren, but let's dispose of the motion that Nancy just made first. So any discussion, Ben? Good, okay. Mark?
I support that, yep.
David?
Well, no discussion on the motion.
Great, thanks, and none for me either. So motion and a second. We'll do a roll call vote as we have been doing. So all in favor, please say aye. I'll start with Ben.
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
And Jim, I'm a yes as well. So 5-0-0, the motion carries. Nancy, let me turn it back to you to finish any questions you might have for Lauren.
No, I mean, I think it's outlined pretty well. It's nice that the delegation and the governor, sat down to kind of give us this outline. If it's safe to have elections, we'll have elections. If it's not safe to have elections, we'll put off elections. But elections are important, so I think it's essential part of government, and we just, like a lot of things, we have to wait and see. We don't like to be patient, but we have to.
Okay, thanks, Nancy. David, why don't I go to you next?
And just to clarify, so if the elections are postponed past the date of the current date, are all elected officials' terms extended until that next election?
Yes, David, that is the case. The special legislation says that in chapter 45, but you guys aren't really subject to that, but there's a provision in the general laws, chapter 41, section 107, which basically says that elected officials hold office until their successors are elected and qualified. So yes, people would continue in office for the administration of government business.
Just a follow up to that. So if the town meeting occurs after the June election, the newly sworn in members of the town meeting will vote in that election, or and not the people that would have been voting if the town meeting were held in May.
Yeah, that's correct. If the election happens before town meeting, then the new town meeting representatives would be voting at the town meeting at the end of June. I have a feeling that because of the timing of this, that we'll have a better picture of where we are at the end of the governor's, state of emergency, but the non-essential business order, which is in the beginning of May. And that would really be the time for us to kind of assess what the limitations might be with having an election, a month after that. And certainly clerks around the state are going to be dealing with this issue. And so hopefully we'll have a little more clarity about how much work we need to do to make that happen in a way that's safe for all voters and for the staff.
Thank you.
Anything else, David?
All set. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Mark?
Yeah, I would just ask Jim Johnson to talk with our legislators. I don't want to see that decision wait too long. A June 3rd election, we need at least 30 days. Liz may say she needs more to really make sure we get that right and do all the things that need to be done. So I really don't want to see them wait until the very end of May and then all of a sudden give us an option where we don't really have a choice of what to do. So the earlier they can let us know, the better on the election date.
Understood.
Makes sense. Thanks, Mark. And Ben?
So thank you, Lauren, for joining us and giving that outline. And Jim, I think you've done a good job with your updates and the other information that's been put out, making it clear to everyone what the dates are for all the various deadlines, when this is taking place, who the decision makers are. A lot of this is out of the town's hand to a certain extent, but certainly, the entire select board, based on the comments tonight, and everyone at town hall is interested in making sure that not only, as Lauren said, that the residents are safe, but that it's a fair election for all involved as well, and for everyone taking part in the entire process from nomination papers all the way through. And I think that Liz and Jim have done a good job of that so far. And as long as we keep communication channels open and clear, then I think we'll be in good stead.
Great. Thank you, Ben. Okay, Jim, I'll go back to you. Anything more for Lauren?
No, just one other thing I gonna again cover it under the update, but I'll take it out of order. Just public areas. I know who have reached out to me and said, residents have raised concerns about public areas and closing down places like the town forest. At this time, obviously, we haven't done that. We haven't closed off the parking. For the most part, the residents are doing really well adhering to social distancing and not gathering in groups of 10. And if there's been incidences where they have gathered in groups of 10, the police department's gone out and broken that up, and residents have really been cooperative. And while I have the chief here and Lauren here, I wanted to let you know that at this time, we're not closing those types of areas. I know we went ahead and closed the tennis court. I think it was yesterday. It took out the goalposts and some of the equipment that was on the high school athletic field. But I think it's good to allow the residents to keep out and keep active out there. And, I consulted with Melissa and Chief Carmichael before kind of coming up with this idea, but I did want to make the board aware of it and ask to see if you have any issues with it. And since we have the chief and Lauren here, I thought it might be appropriate.
Perfect. Chief, maybe I'll turn it over to you to speak to that if you have anything to add to it.
Good evening. How you doing?
Hey, Chief.
Yeah, we've had some communication with Jim and with Melissa. Certainly, the town has the authority and the ability to close down public areas if they so choose. The high school track or Adams Farm or any of those locations. But the issue is, and I've kind of stayed with this all along, is that I think the most that we're consistent with what the governor's orders are, the easier it is for us to remember. The officers will be able to retain what their enforcement mechanisms are, and it's also easier for the people to understand it as well. Whether we close them or not, the response from the police will still be the same. Right now, we are already dealing with, if there's like Jim said, if there's a gathering of more than 10 people, or if there's a gathering of less than 10 people and there's any physical activity involved. We've had situations with, non-essential businesses opening. We've had, good communication with the restaurants as far as on-premise consumption of food and making sure that they are, bringing it out to the vehicles. And so everybody's been doing a really great job about following the governor's instructions. We have had some occasions where we've had to issue dispersal orders or things like to that nature, but nothing, too extraordinary. We had one issue with Bird Park, where Bird Park closed, but we had good communication with the officials at Bird Park, and there was some pressure on the police department, to make arrests, and if somebody's trespassing and things like that. That we don't plan on doing that. What we do plan on doing is following what the governor's orders are, and it was very clear that the first offense is always going to be a warning. The second offense is going to be must be on a civil local bylaw ticket, and the third offense could then be progressively kicked up to a criminal charge if necessary. I don't think we'll ever get to that point, but that's kind of where we are. Like Jim said, most people are abiding by what they're supposed to be doing, and when we get a call or we just happen to see it, we'll do what we have to do to make sure that they do the right thing.
Great. Thanks, Chief. Okay, Jim, anything else for Lauren?
No, that's it. So we can go on to the appointment of the officer.
Great. Lauren, thanks very much for being with us tonight. I appreciate your input.
Jim?
We're going to move on now to the next agenda item, which is the appointment of Officer Madden to the police force. Chief Carmichael is going to take us through that. Again, this is not our usual approach to doing officer appointments, but in this day of remote, the way we're remoting in, this is the best we're going to be able to do. And it's very important that we keep the police fully staffed. So, Chief, let me turn it over to you to take us through the process and the appointment so we can ask some questions and then take a vote.
Sure. Thank you, Jim. About a month ago, Jim and I were talking, and he had made some good ideas about the thought of bringing retired police officers back on duty. And that conversation even turned to the possibility of legislation being filed, similar to what some of the healthcare professionals have done. Just in the event that if we lose staffing and that sort of thing, that we would have people to supplement, the officers that we have and the personnel that we have working with the police department. As a result of that, I did reach out to one of our officers. The most recently retired was William Madden, Billy Madden, who was a 17-year veteran of the Walpole Police Department. He mostly worked as our police prosecutor for a long time and developed some very good, positive reputation with the court community, as well as in town. Very good with community policing philosophy and an exemplary officer, very demonstrated compassion on a regular basis. He had retired and he relocated up to Vermont. His family moved up there, and he ended up getting a job with the U.S. The Citizen and Immigration Services. And at this point, when I spoke to him, he was interested in coming back, and so that's kind of what started the process. Billy has a bachelor's degree criminal and social justice from BC, and he's a graduate, obviously, of the Massachusetts Police Academy. He is somebody that, because he's a veteran of the department, would be able to basically seamlessly move back into the department and fill the void that we just lost of one officer that transferred back to his hometown of Quincy. So that's kind of where we are. I thought it would make sense to slide somebody into that position as quickly as possible. Billy had the reputation here of being a very good police officer, and for those reasons, that's why I asked for the board's consideration and bring him back and reinstating him. He also, I failed to mention that he was also in the United States Marine Corps, and I'll hold all the Army Marine jokes at this point.
Chief, thanks very much for setting that up for us. I have to say, I think this is a great idea, bringing someone back who already knows the force and knows what we're all about here in Walpole, I think is very beneficial. And as I noted before we started the dialogue, it's important that we keep the police department fully staffed. And that goes for all of our first responders, police, fire, all public safety. This is an extraordinary time we live in, and it's very, very important to me that we stay at full force capability. And so I applaud your innovation, as we have with so many things that we've seen in the town. And it is really remarkable just, how creative and innovative and, out of the box thinking so many of the folks that, our administration here in town have been. And this is just another great example of that. We've seen it, with what you've done with the police in other cases. We've seen it with the fire. Mike just took us through what he's going on with building inspection, and it goes on and on through every one of the departments. So I just, can't say enough about how impressed I am with, Jim, the way your team has pulled together and really come up with some just really great and creative ideas to make sure that we're keeping the health and safety of our citizens, front and center, while also making sure we're paying attention to the health and safety of the people who work for us. So I just want to congratulate you on that, Chief. And so with that, let's do the round robin thing again. And so, David, I'll start with you on this one. Any questions or comments for the Chief?
I think this is great. Welcome back, Officer Madden.
Thanks, David. Mark?
Yeah, I feel the same way. I think it's a smart decision, and welcome Officer Madden back as well. Thanks.
I'll go to Ben next.
Thank you for collecting all this information, Chief, and giving us the whole rundown and backstory. It sounds like a great deal.
Thanks, Ben. And Nancy, I'll go to you.
Super. I think it's awesome when a Walpole kid comes home. I would like to, with that being said, make a motion to appoint William Madden as a Walpole police officer with the conditions outlined in the Chief's letter we received via email today. Permanent residency within 15 miles of Walpole within 30 days, a Mass driver's license within 30 days, obtain a Mass license to carry a firearm within 40 days, and successful completion of 1-year probation.
I'll second that.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. I'm assuming no further discussion, so we'll move right to a roll call vote. David, I'll start with you.
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Ben?
Yes.
And Nancy?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well, so 5-0-0 to appoint Officer Madden. Chief, please convey to Officer Madden our congratulations and thanks for rejoining the team, and tell him we said welcome back. It's a great day for the department to have someone come back like this, and very importantly to help us to execute the mission of the department, especially during these trying times. So please pass that on to him from the board.
I will. Thank you very much. And you may not see him for a little while because we'll be on midnight still. So.
Well, hopefully I won't see him. Hey, Chief, before we let you go, I wonder if you would just take 2 minutes to give a brief update on that shooting incident that took place on Common Street a few nights ago. and just bring people up to speed on where we are with that.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So this incident occurred on Saturday, April 4th, and we later found out that it happened about 1:30 in the morning. The homeowner didn't discover that anything was out of place until that morning when they woke up. They came downstairs and they discovered that there was a hole through the side of the house, on the front side of the house, but through the siding and through the wall on the interior. And so they called the police department, and we went down there. We did verify that that was indeed looked like either a low to mid caliber ballistics round that had traveled through that wall. We started an investigation. We started to canvass the neighborhood. Luckily, we did find multiple witnesses that had heard the gunfire the night before. And so that it's a similar or typical thing to happen sometimes when you hear these types of things, backfire or fireworks or that kind of thing. We don't always think that it's going to be actual gunfire. But in this case, it was. And so we were able to gather a lot of witnesses. We narrowed down a time. We had the state police ballistics team come out, crime scene services, our detectives. We started to process the scene. We had a ballistics dog come out and check that whole area. By the way, is about 100 yards from the police station on Common Street. Thankfully, there was no injuries in this case. And, obviously the danger was there, but we're very glad that everybody is okay. After that, on Monday, on the April 6th, we received another call, even after we did the canvass, that another home had been struck. And there was another round that gone through a front window, and the round got lodged into the television set in the living room on the first floor. So we were able, which is really good. In the first case, we weren't able to collect any evidence because we believe the round fragmented and we weren't able to get anything. The second situation, we were able to collect some physical evidence with the round being lodged in the TV. So we do have, we were also able to get, by doing our canvas, some very good video, not actually of the situation happening, but we have good video of the shots, the succession of the shots, a pretty precise location from where they were. And then we have the vehicle that's actually fleeing from the scene, travels down Common Street towards Walpole Center. So we also were able to get some good still shots of that car in Walpole Center as well. So this is a very fluid investigation right now. Detectives are working very hard. We're using all the resources that we have to focus on this right now. I want to also mention that, we don't know the intent. We don't know what the actual incident and why this happened yet. We don't believe that the people were targeted. We don't know where the other two rounds are that we know for certain that were shot. So it appears random. And, like I said, we're going to continue on with this investigation. We are obviously taking this very, very seriously. And thank the people on Common Street for putting up with the disruption over the past couple of days with the police, closing off the roads and going through their yards and that sort of thing. But they worked very well with us, and we look forward to hopefully finding out who did this.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that, Chief, and thanks to you and your team for the great job of investigating, and we'll see where it leads us to. Let me just give a quick opportunity for people to ask questions. So, Ben, I'll start with you. Any questions for the Chief?
No questions.
Mark?
No questions.
David?
All set, thank you.
And Nancy?
All set, thank you.
Okay. So, Chief, thank you very much for being here tonight and for the bringing Officer Madden forward and for the update on the situation on Common Street. So we're going to move on to our next agenda item, which is an appointment of Mark Romeo to the Economic Development Commission as a regular member. Before we get to that, though, I want to just tee this up a little bit because, to be honest with you, I botched this thing pretty badly. And so I want to make sure that I explain that before we get into discussion and voting. So the reason I put this appointment on the agenda for tonight is because I actually made a pretty bad error in judgment when we reappointed a number of people to boards and committees last week. Not last week, the last meeting. You'll recall we had a raft of reappointments to do. I wanted to meet with the EDC and talk about ways in which the select board and the EDC could work more closely together and discuss strategic direction. And given that, I thought we should defer appointments to the EDC until we had an opportunity to discuss the overall direction with them. So we sent a note to Mark telling him that following our last meeting. And, Mark was understandably confused and upset that I deferred that reappointment. And as I look back on that, I realized that was really a bad decision on my part. It certainly wasn't appropriate to tie the appointments to the committee to any meeting that we might have going forward in terms of strategy, et cetera, et cetera. So frankly, really a bad decision on my part. Mark Romeo called Ben Barrett, who contacted me. I contacted Mark directly, and I told him what happened and why. I took full accountability, told him this is on me, and that I made a bad decision. I apologized to him, told him I'd put him on the agenda for today, and I expected he'd be reappointed. And my apologies to Mark Romeo and to the board, because frankly, I should be better as chair than that, and I'll try to do better going forward. So that's why I have the item on the agenda, and I'll open it up for discussion at this point. So David, I'll go to you first.
What in particular have you been wanting to talk to the EDC about? And was there something particular that Mr. Romeo, a position he took or something he said that caused you to delay this?
No, there's nothing this has nothing to do with Mark. It's purely that I want to make sure that we as a board are getting closer to what the EDC is doing, and that we're offering more support and direction than we are today. Frankly, we haven't even met with them since I've been on the board, and we need to do that. There's some interesting ideas that they had. In fact, when Mark and I were chatting the other day, we talked about the his desire to create a better, I'll call it dining al fresco approach to downtown Walpole, which I think is a good idea. So it's things like that, but he needs the support of the board to be able to do that. And I think we owe it to them to sit down and figure that out. So it was nothing more than that, David.
This had nothing to do with their position against the inclusionary zone and provision and their desire to speak before town meeting?
No, not at all. Anything else, David?
I'm all set.
Thank you. Ben, I'll go to you next.
No, I appreciate the clarification, Jim, and I appreciate Mark reaching out as well. And the more we can communicate and clear up issues like this when they arise, and make sure we're on the same page, the better off we are. And spend time on the most important things, which is moving forward and assessing what we're doing and supporting the EDC as you put it, Jim. So I agree with that and support Mark's reinstatement as a member.
Great, thanks, Ben. Mark, I'll go to you next.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm happy to see Mark reappointed to the EDC. Since it looks like this COVID-19 problem is going to drag out, we may want to consider in a month or two doing a Zoom meeting with them and just start some discussion about some of the items going forward. Hopefully COVID-19 will clear up quicker, but right now, it looks like we should plan for the worst case, but that would be a good way to start syncing up with them and trading some ideas.
Great, thanks, Mark. Nancy?
No questions, no concerns, but I can make a motion to appoint Mark Romeo to the EDC as a regular member.
And I'd like to second that. So we have a motion and a second. We'll do a roll call vote. David, I'll start with you.
Aye.
Mark?
Yes.
Ben?
Yes.
And Nancy?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so 5-0-0, the motion carries. Okay, thank you, and thank you for indulging me on that. We'll go off to our final agenda item today, which is town administrator update. Jim, if you have anything more for the board.
Yeah, just one other item. Covered the public, the couple of areas related to COVID. The only other item is the Route 1A TIP program. They are going forward with that program, and the utility work is going to start very soon. And some of it has already started this week. They're going to be out there starting to do some of the site work to start the process of moving all the poles back. Those are going to be set back a little bit further. So if you see some work getting done up there, police department's aware of it. I was kind of surprised they're going forward at this point, but they are. So MassDOT's going to start that soon. So that's it.
That's it? Okay. All right, well, that concludes our agenda.
Jim?
I'm
excuse
sorry,
me, Jim.
Nancy. Go ahead, Nancy.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
After the chief had spoken earlier, I did just want to mention, as he stated, it's very important for everyone to be, groups of 10, listen to the governor's order, socially distancing, 6 feet apart. But with that being said, and I think to mention the reason we don't want to close the town forest and we don't want to close the town track, because just as important of all of those things is lung health. So please, everybody, we want you to stay home. We want you to stay apart from people. We don't want you to be in groups, but we want you to keep exercising your lungs. And that is walking and things like that. It is the most important thing you can do if you do get sick.
That's great counsel, Nancy. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, as I said, that concludes our agenda for tonight's meeting. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn, and everybody stay safe.
I'll second that.
And thank you for the motion and the second, especially for the everyone stay safe. Everyone please do stay safe. So roll call vote to adjourn. Ben?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
David?
Aye.
And Nancy?
Yes.
And Jim, aye. 500, the motion carries. We are now adjourned. Patrick, thanks very much.